I think you're going to like this picture.
There's something about the Loews Kings that is classy, and there's a good reason why, because the main two design elements were the Palace of Versailles and the Paris Opera House. The lobby was overpowering. It was so majestic, so grand, so classy, that it really left you dumbstruck. In a way, you felt like you were walking into a magnificent synagogue or church.
It's a wonderful experience to come here to the King's Theatre, which I have not visited during the last 50 years when I actually worked on it. To enter these lobbies that are so lush and rich in their expense and in their concept of design.
The chandeliers, not one, not two, there had to be maybe, I'd say 4 to my recollection. And the beautiful furniture, the sofas, everyone used them. The works of art, the fountains, even the water fountains from which you drank, it was nothing like today. And then, of course, the grand staircase going up to the balcony. The words sometimes escape me, especially now, just how beautiful it really was.
Here we have 2 enormous foyers and lobbies that are rich, if not richer than the theater itself, because in those days the theaters were so popular and so well attended that people spent a great deal of time on line waiting to get into them. During that wait, they felt that they were part owners. They owned the place. It was theirs for the hours for which they had paid their money. And we wonder really how these owners who built the theaters, why they made them so rich. Because they had, whether knowingly or unknowingly, realized that besides showing a picture and entertaining the people, they wanted to give them a lift, give them a sense of their own importance.
This is Bruce Friedman for That's Brooklyn, and I'm freezing, but we're inside the Loews King's Theater on Flatbush Avenue, and today is the day where the mayor and the borough president of Brooklyn announced that the theater is going to be totally restored and brought back to the way it looked in 1929. Only it's not going to be a multiplex, it's going to be a center for the arts with live entertainment, concerts, as well as Broadway road companies.
For over 40 years, the Kings had a good run.
A couple of animal acts or a balancing act, juggling. If all this sounds familiar and you never saw vaudeville, well, I could be describing the Ed Sullivan Show, because really, the Ed Sullivan Show was television vaudeville. Eddie Cantor, Jimmy Durante, Bob Hope, Milton Berle, every one of the people I mentioned earlier, they played vaudeville in this theater, but they also played vaudeville on radio, in the movies, and later on the Ed Sullivan Show. So Ed Sullivan brought back vaudeville.
Barbra Streisand was an usherette in the 50s while attending nearby Erasmus High. When she left, Streisand was said to have remarked that one day she would be back when her name appeared on the marquee. Her prediction came true again and again. But low attendance and high maintenance costs did the theater in, and by '77, the house went dark.
There was less interest in going to see one movie in one theater, and that's when the concrete bunkers, the multiplex just boxes came to be, and people forgot what's behind the wall, behind the iron gate here at the Loews Kings. The Kings is a place that is totally unique. I look around and I'm sad, but at the same time, somehow I feel exhilarated, because the Kings is not dead, it is not forgotten.
Well, I do not go to the movies very often, if at all, quite honestly. And when I did for a while after that, it was nothing to compare to the Kings. I would just love to see this theater back up again. It's a terrible loss, because it was just something so wonderful to see.
And all what you see here is going to be restored. If there's plaster work, and the plaster work is beat up or chipped like this, it's all going to be brought back to the way it looked way back then. This is a 3,192-seat theater, and it's going to bring such new life back to Flatbush, but it's not going to be a local theater. It's going to be a destination where people from all over Brooklyn can get to see the entertainment that they want to see. And what we have here is a stage with a proscenium arch. But what's happening behind the proscenium arch is that they're going to tear down the stage, the dressing rooms above, and build a brand new stage house, a 60-foot deep stage where the present stage is only 30 feet. That will allow all kinds of big production numbers for live performances to be done here at the Kings. This is the third largest performance space in the city of New York. You have Radio City Music Hall, the theater at Madison Square Garden, and the Loews Kings. We could talk about the Barclays Center, but that's not a theater. This is a theater.
I can remember walking up these stairs many times with a girl on a date on a Saturday night at the Loews Kings. You couldn't ask for a better place to be, the balcony. In fact, everybody wanted to sit in the back row of the balcony. This is the Loews Kings. It's closed, but even with the destruction, the theft, the decay that you see, this place is still beautiful. It still retains class.
The bathrooms are not just bathrooms here at the Loews Kings. They're really sitting areas. The men's room up here on the mezzanine has King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table in gold leaf right over the entranceway. If you go to the ladies' room, you have a lounge and a fireplace and beautiful ornate Victorian furniture. So everything was done to the hilt. There was less interest in going to see one movie in one theater, and that's when the concrete bunkers, the multiplex just boxes came to be, and people forgot what's behind the wall, behind the iron gate here at the Loews Kings. Loews sold it, I think, for some ridiculous, like $1, to another operator who ran it into the ground, and that was it.
The Kings today is a mature lady who is crying out for a complete makeover. She's crying out. She's waiting. Her beauty is there, but it needs to be polished.
My feelings today are really no different from every other time I've been in here. I've been in here maybe 100 times, and I see damage, and I see what could be done to fix it. I have a positive attitude. I believe that this place could be put back in shape, but when I walk in, it's cold, it's damp, it's dark, it's musty and dingy. You can't get away from that. You can't get around it. But the thing is that you have to be an optimist when it comes to something like this.
The opportunities are in front of us. So we either let it happen or make it happen. Let it happen is not happening. It's almost 30 years now. We sit here in a magnificent structure that's gotten a little mature.
I'm sitting here in a 3,200-seat theater, not something that's been chopped up into 6 or 10 little box multiplex theaters, but I'm sitting here all by myself. I mean, there are 3,199 other seats. Why don't you join me and understand the potential of the third largest venue, theatrical venue in the entire city of New York. This is the Loews Kings. It's been closed since 1977. It's not forgotten because this theater entertained an awful lot of people, and it could do that again.
Kings is a passion with me, no question about it. Brooklyn is where legends are made and dreams come true. We need to help shape the future by bringing back a little bit of yesterday.
A place like this would never be built again. The Kings is a place that is totally unique. I look around and I'm sad, but at the same time, somehow I feel exhilarated. Because the Kings is not dead, it is not forgotten.
The Loews Kings. Some have called it the most beautiful theater ever built. Today, elegant even in ruin, it sits empty, left quiet and alone for almost 30 years. But in its heyday, it made patrons' jaws drop and their eyes grow wide with wonder.
I should share with you that I had my very first date here when I was about 16 and a half years old. And in the balcony, that's where you always sat on your dates, in the balcony. And it was a magnificent theater, beautifully maintained, beautiful brass, unbelievable lobby.
Whether you're in the 20s or the 2005, 2006, it doesn't matter in what generation, people need to be entertained, and they need to feel the excitement and the glamour that a theater like this has.
Good afternoon. It's great to be in the presence of an aging but timeless Brooklyn landmark. No, I'm not talking about you, Marty. I thought I'd get a bigger laugh than that. The Loews King Theater is one of 5 movie palaces the franchise built in the New York metropolitan area between 1929 and 1930, and one of the largest and grandest indoor venues in Brooklyn. This was a 3,200-seat showplace designed to reassemble the Paris Opera House and the Palace of Versailles, making it a major attraction for hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers and countless visitors. It was also a place of first employment for many New Yorkers, including a young Sylvester Stallone and Henry Winkler, who worked here as ushers.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days.
And here, Happy Days also came to an end in 1977 when the theater closed its doors. And over the next 35 years, this building has sat vacant. But today, I am pleased to announce with everybody else up here that our administration has finalized an agreement to ensure this cultural landmark is reopened to New Yorkers. This will be the Radio City Music Hall of Brooklyn, and it will be just as spectacular.
How sweet it is!
Borough President Marty Markowitz has long said that the world comes to Brooklyn, and I think when this cultural landmark is fully restored, that will be even more true. Marty?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very, very much. And Ace, I want to thank you and David Anderson that will be in charge of the restoration and management, and with your help, Loews Kings will once again be Brooklyn's biggest indoor theater. By the way, David, I think some of you should know that his company is based in Houston. As it happens, Houston is allegedly the 4th largest city in America. David, get this now, you understand? If Brooklyn were a city again, And you know, the mayor knows what I'm going to say, and of course I wish it still was. But if we were a city again, we would be the 4th largest city, and Houston would be the 5th largest city. So, David, you and your company are moving on up. That's all I can say. And now you're stepping up to the biggest stage of all, Brooklyn, USA. Congratulations.
ACE Theatrical Group specializes in historic restoration and theater operations. Their projects include the Boston Opera House, the Chicago Theater, and the Warner Theater in Washington. So I would like to invite ACE Theatrical's President and CEO, David Anderson, to share a few words. David.
Thanks, everybody. I'll have you out of here in 25 minutes. Don't worry. Starting with the vision of the mayor and the borough president and the elected officials over the past 35 years, really, to prevent this from being demolished. We picked Gilbane. They brought so much to the table. They have made commitments and sacrifices that will ensure that we are going to have the very best team to make sure the restoration is first class and terrific. And finally, we have to reinvent the theater. It's going to be a movie palace on steroids. It's going to be doing theater, music, dance, cultural activities. It is going to be the theater for the entire community. The community has put its money and its support and its effort into it, and the theater is going to give back to the community everything that it's put in.
And when this theater is completed, it will restore the luster of the Flatbush Avenue. And it'll be Brooklyn's Apollo Theater, Beacon, Radio City, all rolled into one.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. The weekend comes, my cycle hums, ready to race to you. These days are ours. These days are ours. Share them with me. Big black, gray sky, hello blue. There's nothing can hold me when I hold you. It feels so right, it can't be wrong. Rockin' and rollin' all week long. Saturday.
Okay, so let me read this if I may. You ready, Joe?
That's right.
First of all, I want to say to Bruce, he was the most important person in this whole effort. Even I may have been the elected official, but he was the person who kept the dream of the restoration of this most beautiful theater alive, and that's true, by the way. And although the Loews Kings was part of my DNA as much as it was yours, actually, but finally, in 1978, I was elected to the Senate, and then we preserved this to make sure that through the Flatbush Development Corporation, my job as a senator, and Bruce, to make sure this was not demolished, because that's what they wanted to do initially, to get rid of this. And then they're going to make it a mall and destroy most everything here. And then they walked away, and at least we preserved this during the Giuliani years to make sure that it wasn't demolished. And then the voters of Brooklyn allowed me to serve them as Brooklyn Borough President, and I made it one of my first priorities, with Bruce's making sure that he made sure that I was...
But I voted for you.
Yeah, I know you voted for me, but okay. But to make sure that I made this a priority, and finally, I had a position in New York City where there was money. Finally, there was money. And so I made it my business, with Bruce's encouragement all the way, to put away some of the money of capital monies to make sure that we can preserve this theater. And the biggest challenge was convincing the city of New York and NYC Economic Development Corporation. And I must give credit where credit is due. Seth Pinsky, who became president of the Economic Development Corporation, initially he and his colleagues this was not their priority, because most of them don't understand the rich history of the borough at that time. But as he and his staff began looking into this, they said this was worth preserving, and they got very excited. The entire staff at EDC became excited, enthralled with preserving this theater for this and future generations. And then at that point, Bruce and I were able to sit back and we did the easy part. He did the stuff on the television and on cable or whatever, and I just shoveled the money every year from my budget to make sure that they had enough money to make this happen. And so, Bruce, I want to really belatedly really read this to you because you deserve so much of the credit of this. Brooklyn is home to extraordinary individuals of every persuasion and walk of life, whatever that means, and that's everything in Brooklyn, whose influence is felt by all with whom they come into contact. It's fitting that we recognize those distinguished men and women of character on whose wisdom, compassion, and energies we rely on to make our great borough, which I call the city of Brooklyn, a wonderful place it is. Brooklyn joins in spirit to pay tribute to Bruce Paul Friedman, a true son of Brooklyn, born at Coney Island, reared in East Flatbush, and currently residing in Windsor Terrace, as I do, by the way, a few blocks away. And Erasmus Hall High School graduates, who, like this borough president, enjoyed his first dates with the opposite sex in the balcony of the historic Loews King's Theater. I hope he did better than I did with my first date, which may be the initial inspiration for his ongoing dedication to save and restore the Loews Kings to its former glory as it currently undergoes a magnificent restoration that was accomplished in part by Bruce's unwavering stewardship. Whereas on behalf of all Brooklyn, I salute Bruce, a tireless supporter of our borough, as well as a former television and direct mail professional, Loews King's official tour guide, producer and host of That's Brooklyn, and the primary mover and shaker who committed countless hours of his life to saving one of Brooklyn's most beloved architectural treasures, working with a diverse group of fellow Loews Kings aficionados, including the Flatbush Development Corporation, NYC Economic Development Corporation, Ace Theatrical and Evergreen Architectural Arts, to not only save this iconic building, but restore it to a former opulence. And I thank him for making this BP spearhead the effort to ensure that future generation of Brooklynites will celebrate the King's Theater, which it will be called, and the sorely remarkable productions that will be presented here in the years to come. Therefore, as president of Brooklyn for the next few days, I think I have 2.5 weeks left. But anyway, it's probably one of the few last that I'm going to present, Bruce, but I'm happy because the last doesn't mean the least. Presenting this citation on the one and only Bruce Paul Friedman. Thank you all, and I mean you so very, very much. Thank you. My pleasure, really, my pleasure. Bruce?
Now, I want to say something which you have said earlier, which is that your name is Markowitz.
Yes.
Okay, now, my first date was in the balcony of the Loews Kings. The young lady was from the Bronx. She lived right near the Loews Paradise.
Oh, that's funny.
And she and her parents couldn't understand why I had borrowed my mother's car so I could pick them up to bring her to the Loews Kings. It was the same movie.
Wow.
Her name was Anise Markowitz.
We were meant to be together.
I want to tell a quick thing. When this project started, I did what I could. But then, in 1995-96, Disney came to Times Square, and I first heard the names Clear Channel Entertainment, Live Nation, Broadway Across America. And what happened is, all of them were interested enough to come to the Loews Kings. And one of them who worked for Broadway Across America, his name is David Anderson. So in other words, that was nice. And the fact that he was in Texas at the time with a company, and I convinced him to come to Brooklyn. The same day that he was here, Jeff Green was here. And Jeff Green is Evergreen, who are doing this magnificent restoration. And that's how I feel. Like it's taken a long time, but it was worth it. And you can't really appreciate this if you look at photographs. You have to see it to believe it. It is just gorgeous. And I'm just wondering, where's the candy stand going to be? It'll probably be half the length of the theater. But it's going to be something very special. And I thank everyone. I really do.
Me too. Me too. But this much we can predict. with the Loews Kings, or the Kings as we will call it in the future. When this opens, it will be the catalyst of exciting things on Flatbush Avenue again. It won't be like when you and I were kids, and it won't be like it's been this last 30 years. This will be a new Flatbush Avenue, just like Brooklyn is a new Brooklyn today, and perhaps in so many ways even better than we experienced as kids. And that's all we want.
So we'll see you soon on That's Brooklyn.
Come on down and see that foxy lady. She's out there waiting for you. It's just about time you met that foxy lady on Woodward Avenue. No other gal is even half so pretty, not in any other town or city. You gotta get a date with that foxy lady down on Woodward Avenue, in Detroit City, down on Woodward Avenue. Foxy lady, come on down and see that foxy lady. She's out there waiting for you. It's just about time you met that foxy lady on Woodward Avenue. No other gal is even half so pretty, not in any other town or city. You gotta get a date with that foxy lady down on